Steve?
Nick.
Steve? You're out there.
Is there anybody out there? Yeah, I'm here. How are you?
I'm all right. We're connecting over the interweb this
Yeah,
week.
we're not together again to do this little preamble. We tried though, didn't we, Nick? We tried to get together today on Sunday to do another episode of the podcast, but we failed. Failed abysmally.
I know, and I blame you for that, Steve.
Well, it's not my fault. It's the train's fault. It was rail replacement bus services today, which meant it was taking me ages to get down to see you.
I hate that, but luckily I've already informed Jeremy Corbyn and his team.
Fantastic. We should tweet him. We should tell him that he's holding back scientific innovation by not having the trains running on time. It's just not good enough.
He's on it. He's on it.
And he's on it. It's not his fault.
No, he's turning up with his gang of people and camera people to document it.
Yeah, well. So what's everyone got to look forward to this week, Nick?
Loads of exciting stuff.
Like
we're going to be talking again a bit about chimeras, which we touched on a few weeks ago now. There's a little story about a lawsuit that was a few years ago, actually. It's based on actually a scientific paper as well, and we're going to be putting that up on Twitter, aren't we?
Yeah, it was a New England Journal of Medicine article, wasn't it?
Exactly. So you can have a when you hear that a bit later on in this podcast, you can go back to the original source material if you want and have a quick look.
We should definitely post that more so we can actually be the scientists we purport to be. You know, actually linking to source data.
Well, no, don't, Steve. People will find out that I'm actually not a scientist.
Like the grown-ups will find out. Yeah, and we're also talking about an interesting paper I found by a kind of very famous author who doesn't typically publish scientific journals, and you get to find out what that is.
That sounds exciting,
yeah.
Steve.
And then we were talking a little bit of Greek and Latin, aren't we, Nick? As we like to. I think, as any of our listeners know, we're clearly very erudite. We're quite often
Yeah, we always do that.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a little bit of that. So it's quite a diverse set this week.
It is. It's exciting. Another history corner.
Another history corner with the new jingle and everything. Good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, should we get on with it?
Yeah, let's take it away.
All right, let's go. Cue the music.
ScienceShed! We're in the ScienceShed! ScienceShed! We're in the ScienceShed! Come on, Steve.
Bunsen.
Burner.
Dolly.
Machine.
Internal.
Combustion.
Why do we need
Steam.
Petri?
Dishes.
Oscar.
Base.
Isaac.
Newton.
Transplanting.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another
The
podcast.
TheScienceShed.
Yeah, we are.
Here we are, Nick, back again.
Where are we today, Steve?
In another location. We do like to move our podcast around, don't we?
Oh, it's amazing, isn't it? We get to see the world.
Well, bits of London, really.
Elephant and Castle.
Exactly. You don't expect maybe to see the kind of Great Plains of the US, the mountains, but no, just
We're in a
Elephant and Castle.
very respectable flat
It's lovely,
of
isn't
one
it?
of your friends, aren't
Yeah,
we?
one of my friends. He's allowed us to kind of crash his house or his flat, so we can ramble, talk stupid things at each other for.
What a hero! I'm really feel very grateful to James and
Nikki.
Nikki. Yeah, that's really nice of them to let us into their lovely flat. I think I've already made myself welcome.
Yeah.
Well, I washed my hands in the bathroom.
Yeah.
And I went to wipe my hands, so I wiped my hands, and I realised it's someone's dressing gown. Not sure whether Nikki's or James is.
All right. So really ingratiating yourself.
Yeah.
And you poured some water on the carpet straight away, didn't you?
A water, yeah. only a touch.
You literally can't take you
well,
anywhere.
at least it wasn't a cup of tea.
That's true.
Yeah.
Right. Well, you can have no staining, nothing of any dark colour. I think.
No, I'm hygienic today. I've had a shower. Yes, and everything's good. So we're ready to crack on, aren't we?
Crack on with a bit
with
some science goodness.
I think you've got some juicy bits for me today, Steve.
I've always got some juicy science.
Bring it on.
So you've been to a conference, right?
Yeah.
Where did you go? In Sweden.
Yes, Sverige.
Is that Swedish?
Ja, tack. Ja.
So Nick sounds really impressive here, like he's just picked up a bit of Swedish, but actually his girlfriend's Swedish. So.
Ja, jag talar lite svensk. No, I can't speak Swedish at all because I'm a loser and I haven't learnt enough. I can say some rude words. I said, yes, I speak a little Swedish.
Okay.
Yeah, I can also say, can I have a cup of tea?
Okay.
Kan jag få en kopp te, tack?
Good.
Kopp te, it's quite similar to English.
I know forest elf in Swedish, that's it.
Which is what?
Skogselva.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah.
Skogs means wood, I think.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, skogen, yeah. And I can also. There's another type of elf they have in Sweden called a rump troll.
What the
It's
hell's
an
a
arse
rump
troll. I don't really know. It means arse troll. I think they're little mischievous fellas that hang
Like
around in the
imps.
undergrowth. Little impish kind of strange little impish, sort of naughty elves.
Naughty elves. And what do they do?
I don't really know. They carry people off
In the night? Children away in the night?
I think they're a little bit kind of mischievous on the side of evil.
Evil
They carry
elves.
away small children if they misbehave, that sort of thing. They've got very dark kind of folklore in Sweden.
Right.
In
Yeah,
all
well-
of those Scandic countries. But anyway, yeah, so I went to a conference there in a place called Uppsala, which is near Stockholm.
Yeah, very good university.
And very nice it was too.
Really?
It's kind of weird, these kind of crossover conference. So I work in regenerative medicine. So there's kind of some people who are like more engineering, like they engineer material scientists, and then you got your biology type people,
Right.
And they're kind of different in their approach.
They come
to
together and they can't speak the same language.
Well, it's mainly in the way they dress.
Oh, that's good. Let's talk about that.
Well, basically, engineering.
So to start off, it's all bad, all terribly dressed, right? That's the way I presume.
No, I disagree.
Oh, wow,
Some
really?
people are very snappily dressed.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Not the engineers, I'd imagine.
Well, they're kind of more conservative. So
Right.
basically, engineers
Uh-huh.
wear suits to conferences.
No.
Yeah, and doctors do too.
What?
Medical people and engineers, they wear suits to
Like
conferences.
full on two-piece
Even if
suit
they're not talking, they wander around in a jacket
and a tie.
with a tie sometimes with a shirt, but definitely like suit
Wow.
trousers
So that
and
is
shoes.
not the same for.
In biology, you don't do that either. You
No.
wear like a pullover with a hole in it.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like you don't quite know what to do. So I'm not a
Was
very...
it like West Side Story, where all the people in suits are on one side of the room, and all of the kind of all the nerds with
It
like
should have
with,
been,
with
shouldn't it?
moth-eaten clothes are on the other?
No, it wasn't. It's the people that wear suits to the engineers, and generally there's mixing going on.
Yeah.
But I think the suit wearing people kind of make the holy jumper people feel a bit bad, so they end up dressing up a bit.
Oh, right.
So like I found myself because I'm
And so Nick does not normally wear
I'm
a
a
suit.
scruffy man.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's unusual to find me with a garment that doesn't have
So
some stain or hole in it.
when you came down to Cambridge and we went for dinner, you had to wear a suit, and I said it was like watching when a dog puts a flea collar on for the first time. It just looks so uncomfortable.
Yeah, I wasn't very happy about it. I found myself wearing shoes.
Uh-huh.
So I'd often just wear trainers, a pair of jeans. I put
So
shoes on, and
you
I bought.
actually- you dressed up.
I dressed up, and I took my best jeans because I've got
Sunday best.
I've got 4 pairs of jeans, all of which are probably from H&M, because I know which ones fit me.
Right.
Because
you
I'm a
probably
bit of a
bought in-
fatty
bought
these
in
days.
2009.
I'm
or
a
something.
strangely shaped man, so I have to have a special fitted jeans from only one shop. So I get these jeans and they fit. They don't like. I don't like it with jeans when you bend over and your arse comes out the back. So these jeans, they don't like. You put the belt on and you bend over and your arse doesn't fly up.
I'm
And-
glad people were tuning in to hear us the kind of cutting edge of science.
But anyway, yeah. So yeah, I wore a shirt and like a kind of nice shirt that I'd ironed. I used an iron in the hotel room.
Right.
So it's a bit unusual for me because
Right.
like I just feel like I
And
should
did
have.
you feel a bit more empowered? Did you a bit more like? Did you know what? Do you feel a little more confident talking?
I don't know about that. I just felt like I fitted in better.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't want to sort of look like I don't know
Scruff
someone.
bag.
Yeah, because it was definitely the sort of environment where it was expected that you weren't in
Right.
t-shirt and shorts, which
Okay.
is what I'd wear at a.
But intellectually, how was the conference?
It was good. It was in tissue engineering, so
Yeah.
it's to do with trying to grow replacement body parts
Right.
in a dish sometimes in a bioreactor.
Mm-hmm.
So
Which just means like a bucket, right?
it's a bucket.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically a bucket which has got a stirrer in
Yeah,
it.
exactly. People, we like to make it sound more complicated than it is. But
Yeah, but it was. I mean, there were interesting talks. I had my students presented posters.
Oh, fantastic! How do they do?
One of my students presented a talk.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they did really well. I think it's quite a broad conference, so there's lots of different types of research. So
People from different backgrounds.
it's a very broad church.
Mm-hmm.
It's that reflects the attire that people were wearing. I don't know how many people are there. There was probably 1,000 people.
Oh, so it's a reasonable conference.
It was a big conference, and it was in a posh kind of hall in part of Uppsala. But the conference dinner was the best bit.
Really, was it good?
Yeah, it was in a castle.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So, like, sometimes a conference dinner can be a fairly, what's the word, rudimentary kind of meal. This was a posh meal.
Right.
And it was in a castle. And, there was, like, delicious food, long tables, wine flowing freely.
That's good.
Yeah, so we had a really good...
We at the conference dinner in Hong Kong, they had one. You know those kind of like Chinese dogs, the little dancing people that get dressed up. There's two of them. They had that, and they did a little routine for us at the beginning. It was like lots of banging of drums. And
Well, hang on a minute.
yeah.
Chinese dogs, dancing dogs.
No, not really a dog. Like a
Trained dogs. I didn't think.
No. You know, there's like they do dragons too. Those kind of
puppets.
Yeah, the puppets. Well, they're not really puppets because there's two human beings in them.
They're like a man and a donkey.
Yeah, like a man and a donkey. Yeah, but it was a dog, but
okay.
it was a kind of like
But it's like
dog.
slightly more cultural.
Yeah,
than
exactly.
That man and a donkey.
It was good.
It's amazing what fun you can have at conferences, isn't it, Steve? We should go to more, shouldn't we?
We should.
Steve.
So I came across this paper.
Great.
It's in the Journal the Journal of the American Medical Association, or JAMA, sometimes that's called.
That's actually a very prestigious journal.
Yeah, it's a good journal, right? And
Good group, was it?
It's a single author paper, which is unusual in science to get.
Is it a review article?
It's more of a kind of special communication, is what
Special communication?
That's what they call it. Yeah.
By one person?
By one person. So normally in science, normally science now is done in a team. You normally have a few people working together to try and get something done. And this one's by a person called Barack Obama, JD.
So, right.
So it's a paper.
JD?
Juris Doctor.
What's that mean?
That means he's a lawyer.
Is he?
Yeah, he's a lawyer. Yeah. So it's called United States Healthcare Reform: Progress to Date and Next Steps. So he's written an actual research kind of level-ish article. I mean, when you read it, it's a little bit self-indulgent, but it's fair enough. He is the president. And when you click on it, so normally when you look at a research article, you click on the little button that says their affiliation. So when you click on your name, let's say the University of Southampton after it, when you click on this one in this paper, it just says author affiliation, President of the United States of America, Washington, D.C. But yeah, it's
How the hell did he have time to write a paper? He didn't do it, did he?
You don't. I think. I don't know. I mean, maybe he did. Do you think he did? You think he's too busy?
Staffer.
Probably.
But
then they should get acknowledged on the paper, don't you think?
You're right. Actually, it would be dishonest and.
We can't do that. If someone, if someone works hard on a bit of research.
Yeah. So okay, I agree. He must have written it then.
Right. So he's written it. We've logicked it. He must have done it. So basically, it's a paper where he goes through and makes a lot of kind of like quantitative. There's lots of graphs in it. I'm showing Nick the graphs right now about how the Affordable Healthcare Act, or the Obamacare, has actually had a kind of positive influence on American society.
But he did the graphs.
Someone's done the graphs. He's made graphs here. Look, there's graphs for little spots.
So he
and
must
lines.
have done the graphs.
He must have done. Yeah.
He wouldn't. It would be. What's the word for dishonesty in science?
Was like scientific integrity, or like,
it's an integrity issue.
Yeah.
So he must have done them.
He's never going to get tenure, is he? If he keeps doing that. So he kind of goes through and talks about how it's working. And
where did he get the graph? Is there any methods?
There's it says data from the series labeled medical expenditure panels were derived from. He's taken them from other sources, databases by Claxton et al. 2016. So he's
had a read around.
Allegedly, yeah. So
is there any acknowledgements?
There's no acknowledgements. It's quite an interesting bit at the end, right? So he says the last bit is kind of looking forward after he said how great what he's done is actually quite interesting, saying lessons for future policymakers. So he says something like, while historians will draw their own conclusions about the broader implications of the Affordable Care Act, I have my own. These lessons learned are not just for posterity. I put them in practice in both healthcare policy and other areas of public policy throughout my presidency. And he talks about how hopefully that people will read this and actually kind of learn lessons. And then one of his points is quite interesting. I wonder what you think about it. So he says the second lesson is is that special interests pose a continued obstacle to change. We work successfully with some healthcare organizations and groups, such as major hospital associations, to redirect excessive Medicare payments to federal subsidies for the uninsured. Yet others, like the pharmaceutical industry, oppose any change to drug policy.
So he was having a pop at them.
Well, interesting. So, no matter how profitable and modest, because they believe it threatens projects. We need to continue to tackle special interest dollars in politics, but we also need to reinforce the sense of mission in healthcare that has brought us affordable polio vaccine and widely available penicillin.
Oh.
So it's quite a balanced argument there, where he's basically saying that, yeah,
you need a bit of both.
We need the pharmaceutical industry. But they're also
they shouldn't run the show.
Exactly, because they're all kind of. So what do you think about that? What do you
what about him writing? I mean, I haven't read the paper.
No, but just
I agree with those
general,
kind of sentiments.
So there's a kind of tendency.
Be pragmatic about things. I mean, the problem in the US is there's so many lobby groups and there's no rules about how. I don't want to turn into a particular political thing. So I know very little about it, but it's my understanding that there aren't really limits on the amount of funding that a party can get. So you can almost buy influence through a lobby group in the US, and the pharmaceutical industry, like
got
the
a lot
gun
of money.
Lobby, they've got a lot of money and they've got vested interests.
But it's interesting that he's actually bringing that up in an article that they do some good, but you can't let them run the show. I think it's quite interesting.
There's a bit of controvery around that article as well. Do you want to know what that is?
Yeah, what is it?
Have you heard of the open access movement?
Of course. So you're making research available to everyone, anyone at any point. So
to explain to everybody out there, it's basically that if your research is funded by taxpayers, then the taxpayers should be able to see the results.
Seems
It
totally
shouldn't
fair.
be hidden from. But often what happens is you have a journal system where scientists will publish in a particular journal, and then the journal charges a subscription fee, usually to like a university library.
So
but that means that your average punter, he can't go and look at it.
So what happens is you look on the BBC website, it says they've made this massive advancement in, cancer treatment, and then there's a link to the primary research article. When you click on that, you can't actually get access to the actual paper that people... No. You can only get the BBC bad approximation of actually what went on.
And that's a bad thing. So they've changed the rules. So now all of the funding councils in the UK and also in America as well, to some extent, they stipulate that if your research is funded by the taxpayer, then it has to be made open access.
That sounds good thing.
So do you think that Obama's...
Well, this one about the Affordable Healthcare Act, it's not open access.
No. Who do you think pays for the president?
I reckon probably the American electorate does.
Yeah, so he's broken the law.
That he implemented.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
What do you
brilliant.
think about that? So there's a guy, I forget his name,
seems
and maybe
really
we'll find his name at the end of the podcast.
Yeah.
But he's one of the leading open access advocates. He wrote an open letter
Right,
pointing out that the president has broken the law.
Has he broken the law? Is probably quite strong.
No, he has.
Really?
That's what he has broken the law.
But could he? I thought we could make it. I'm sure he can probably afford to make it open access. He could probably pay for that.
Yeah, I think it's probably...
I reckon he's got a bubble
It
too.
said basically
He's
at the
got a
bottom of the
couple of
article... I
helicopters.
don't know whether you can see at the bottom of the article, but it says copyright by
It does say
such and
copyright.
such.
Cambridge University. Yeah.
Well, that's just because you paid the...
Copyright Medical Association.
Yeah, exactly. So there you go.
Wow.
Yeah, so the President of the United States of America?
It's massive.
Common criminal.
Hey Nick, we're back.
Hey, Steve. Do you remember a while ago we talked about chimeras?
Chimeras, yeah, I do. You're half lion, half something. What was it?
Half lion, half snake, half goat. And actually, I was right.
You were. We looked it up.
Oh
afterwards.
my God,
you were
that's amazing.
so right.
I was pretty pleased about that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I won't go into what a chimera is in too much detail again, but we use them in biology, and they're kind of like an organism composed of one or more original cell types.
Mm-hmm.
I'll come back to this at the end.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's an interesting story from kind of humans,
Yeah.
right? And it's to do with a paternity case, a lawsuit. So basically what happened, to give you a bit of background, there was some argument over alimony, money for a woman about to have a child, and parental payments for the child. Okay, so they went to court basically to try and get the father, the presumed father,
I know where this is
of the
going
baby,
already. Okay, yeah, go.
to have a
A DNA test.
A DNA test, yeah, to find out whether he was the father of the baby, right? So they tested his DNA and the mother's DNA, right? And basically, he was the father of the child, sorted out.
Right.
But do you know what they found out?
What?
She wasn't the mother of the child.
What?
Even though she'd given birth to the child, she'd had the baby in her womb and given birth to the child, she wasn't the mother of the child.
What? How can this happen?
That's what they thought. So they assumed that she was a fraud.
She's a big liar.
They assumed that she was some kind of liar because it's pretty categorical, genetic evidence, yeah? People invest a lot of faith in genetic evidence.
No, but my understanding of DNA fingerprinting and such is that it's when things aren't a match, you can be very sure. Whereas to say someone is or is not their parent is a kind of statistical analysis. But when it's not true, they can be incredibly confident.
I think in both cases you can be reasonably confident. I don't actually know the details, so you've got one over on me there.
Right.
I thought it was pretty specific. You could pin someone down very specifically if it was them, and chances would be 1 in a million. I mean, that's how DNA evidence works.
Yeah, sure.
Anyway, basically, she wasn't the mother of the child.
And she
knew she'd had this baby.
So she'd been in hospital. She'd
had
an epidural. All that.
But obviously, the courts thought, well, there's some subterfuge going on here.
I think you probably, if you had to guess,
biological evidence can't be wrong.
Yeah.
Anyway, the lawyer in this case obviously was convinced as well. She was telling the truth, was the child. He found articles in the paper. Basically, what had happened was this woman was a chimera.
Wow. So she had two types of DNA in her.
Well, do you know what identical twins are?
I do, yeah.
What's an identical twin, Steve? Tell me how it's formed.
Well, so an identical twin is when the embryo, the zygote, forms, and then splits at an early age, right?
Yeah, so it's one sperm, one egg.
Yeah,
it starts to form one person, but then it'll split very early on.
And then those two things kind of progress independently.
Yeah. Do you know what non-identical twins are?
Well, when there's two eggs.
Two eggs, two sperms. Do you know what can happen sometimes?
What can happen sometimes, Steve?
What would happen is two sperm fertilise two different eggs.
Yeah.
Normally that would form two individuals who would be as closely related as
brother and sister.
Sometimes they can fuse together not long afterwards and form one individual person. So you can be one individual person with individual thoughts, dreams, all the rest of it, but you're ultimately composed of two separate individuals.
But how does that work? So do you end up with is it kind of like split down the middle? Like, is it, do you end up with different organs that have different DNA? Like,
it's a good question, and it can vary quite considerably, right? So in the case of this woman, this is what had happened to her.
Right.
It turns out she was a chimera. So she was composed of two individual genetic origins, two sperms, two eggs, fused soon after fertilization. So she was almost as if
she was the auntie of the kid, basically.
So basically what had happened was so you can test cells from the body.
Yeah.
Right. The cells which had given rise to the egg, which had made her baby, were different from the cells which had been taken from the mouth swab or her blood sample.
Right.
All right. So the cells that they'd taken...
But they're only going to be as different as a sibling.
She was as closely related to the baby as an auntie would be.
Yeah, okay, get it.
Yeah, so she was like the auntie to the child.
That's so weird.
It's kind of quite weird, isn't it? Yeah.
So basically all of the cells, or the ones they took at least from the mouth swab, were from they had one set of DNA from one person.
Yeah, and we talked about this earlier on, but you can make chimeras artificially in the lab. So you can fuse two embryos, or you can take some cells that you've grown in dish, embryonic stem cells, and put them in a developing embryo, and then plant them back in the mouse.
So you kind of trick them.
And if you use a brown and a white mouse, you end up with a mouse which is composed...
Which looks
patchy. Yeah. So if those cells were pigmented in the fusion event in this woman, then you would have been able to spot which tissue.
So what about if our auntie was ginger, and she would
have patchy hair. If some of them, only if part of the scalp was composed of one cell type, part of the cell type. Isn't it? But the interesting thing about that story is as well, this woman is totally normal. You can have people who are... So if there's a person... If the two early embryos which fuse are the same sex, you will be normal, okay? If they're from two different genders, so you can have non-identical twins, a boy and a girl.
Sure.
You can have infertility and intersex characteristics.
Yeah.
And it's thought that a higher than sort of anticipated percentage of people walking around today are actually chimeras.
Ooh.
And you would never know.
That's exciting, isn't it?
You wouldn't know unless
You
you had an argument about a baby you were going to have.
Well, no, because you also don't know where they're chimeric, right? So if you're saying it's in your mouth and in your gametes, in your sex cells, that's different to like, is your pancreas any different? Is your skin different? These kind of things.
But I just find it really weird. It's interesting to think that there's sort of a vegetative thing, isn't there? Like you bud off. You can have this sort of non-identical twin. You bud off.
Twin.
One individual buds off to form
Yeah.
two separate people, because identical twins are unambiguously individuals.
Indeed.
Even though they've got certain weird mind meld things.
Yeah.
Going on, right.
can cheat
but
at
then you
school
can have
tests.
two of them in kind of a mashup. So you could be fused with your, my brother or my sister or whatever,
Right.
and end up living an individual life.
So how do we test
kind
it?
of makes.
Why don't we test it? We're in the position to be able to test this on ourselves.
What do
To
you
work
mean?
out if we're chimeric. We should look into it.
Well, it takes scrapings from every part of my body, and then test.
I wonder what the percentage of that is.
I don't know. I don't know. And you know what? A good way. I've just thought of a way of testing it, because if intersex people, there's a lot of intersex people we know about them. You could probably find out
If there was a higher proportion.
the frequency
in
of
transgender
chimerism
people.
in intersex people, not transgender, intersex.
Sorry, intersex people.
In intersex people, and then from that, statistically, you could probably work it out.
Right.
Let's
as
do
a
that
sampling.
for next time, Steve.
All right, let's do that, Nick.
Great.
You on the rap to the sounds of the past. Pulled on your money, got some pole in your glass. I didn't have the internet, just see a Game of Thrones, but still I had some fun with any shit like telephone.
Nick.
Steve, you're a finicky bastard, aren't you?
Hells yes.
Do you consider yourself to be a scientist?
I would say so, yeah.
You sure?
What, are you making me question my own existence here?
Are
Yeah.
you a scientist or a man of science?
Oh, I like that. I don't know where this is going, but I like the distinction. I would call myself a scientist. Scientist famously was a derogatory term, wasn't it? So natural philosopher was the kind of establishment's view of the profession, and it was actually a derogatory term which we've reappropriated.
Well, I'm going to we're going to explain a little bit of that
Ooh,
to you today.
good.
So some people,
Did I totally
some
jump?
finicky people, they get irritated with words like television. Do you know why television might be an irritating word to some people?
Is it because half of it's Greek and half of it's Latin?
Exactly.
Yeah, they hate it. What's that called? It's got a name.
I don't know.
Yeah, but for the classicists, it hurts them deep, doesn't it? It's a real deep cut.
So do you still consider yourself a scientist?
Oh, is that one of
Yeah.
those?
So science is Latin, and tist or ist
Yeah.
is from the Greek. So
Right.
there was a big debate at the start of the 20th century about what
What are you gonna
people
call
of our profession, ourselves as men of science, were going to call themselves. Because scientist was already a word in common usage.
Right.
It had started to sort of pervade
Right.
everything. And some people weren't very happy about
like
that.
kind of selfie. It was just kind of getting in and amongst the
Yeah.
kind of local vernacular.
So there's I've been consulting with my friend Walter Gratzer again.
Walter Gratzer.
Walter Gratzer has written a number of science history books.
you say he's not really a friend. He's just written a book. And that
Yeah,
you
he's
have-
my
that
sort
you
of.
have in front of
he's
you
my
there.
imagine. Well, he's not an imaginary
Would you
friend,
like
but
to
I
go for a
imagine
pint
that.
with Walter Gratzer.
I wish I could. He
Is
must
he
be
dead?
quite old. I don't know. He's not. I don't think
Maybe we should.
he's an emeritus at King's College.
We should try and track him down and have a cup of tea.
We should do
We
that.
could get him on the podcast.
I hope
Let's
we
do
could,
that.
wouldn't it? We could try.
Because then he basically completely make us redundant. Because
Well, let's find out. First things first. Let's find out whether he's still alive.
I'm going to search it right now.
Oh no! Don't do it when we're on the podcast, Steve. I want to tell you about
All right,
it.
tell me about.
Anyway, there was a chap called Werwell, and Walter Gratzer. He's done a book where he gets bits and pieces from old natures, and he's made a compendium called a Bedside Nature. And there was a debate in the pages of Nature in the 1920s about what people were going to be called. And
That's such a glorious time, isn't it? When literally there was so little to do that you could, in the scientific literature, have a debate about what your name was. I'm like, what's the profession? I love it.
Exactly. And there's a chap here who wrote a letter called Henry Armstrong, So he was a bit of a loudmouth, conservative sort of person. And he said things, the real men, those who do things, bakers, butchers, builders, boxers, grocers, even greengrocers, all have a name ending in ER.
Sciencer.
The term ist is reserved for theosophists, thaumaturgi, I don't even know what these words are, even those who pretend to be but are not chemists. That's you, Steve.
No, I'm a chemist.
So he wanted it to be called a sciencer, right? That's what he was calling himself. So we could have been called sciencers. I might put it on.
And his argument basically is that he's annoyed by the kind of airy-fairy theologists.
I think it was partially, that kind of like trumping up. You know,
Right.
the ist was kind of a thing to make it sound more impressive than it actually was.
Right, it's the people that get on and do stuff.
Yeah, like
The kind of-
5D
the
imaging.
salt of-
We've talked about
the
that.
salt of the earth kind of people.
Do you remember I get irritated with you with 5D
You
imaging?
didn't like it, did you?
No, because I think that's trumping up something.
No, for me, it's...
Anyway, look, it doesn't matter. That's the same kind of principle, I
Right.
think, because I get irritated by things like this. But yeah, he wanted to be called a sciencer.
By the way, Walter Gratz's totally alive.
But oh, great.
Yeah, he's
Oh.
I'm just looking at...
Let's get him. We'll try and get.
We'll send him an
Gratz
email.
on.
I've got his email right here. I'm going to send him an email.
Yeah, okay. Oh, I'm quite nervous now because I love him. Maybe get him.
Don't meet your heroes.
No, I know. Anyway, you're right that it had a sort of derogatory sense about it.
Yeah.
Because I mean, there's another guy. Another guy wrote in and said, the word already has got a taint about it, very much as the word sophist did in Greek. So a sophist is someone who's sort of into sophistry, I suppose, and overcomplicating things. I don't know the background. But anyway, there was a debate about it, and we ended up being called scientists anyway. So it was too late.
And that's just
It
because
became
the people basically spoke.
I think so.
It just kind of became
I mean, you
in common
can't
usage.
argue with common usage, can
Yeah.
you? Words just get used.
People
and
do try and fight that, though, don't they? They have a better...
Well, another example is in France. They try and get rid of the anglicisation of words like email. I forget the French word for email, but they've got their own term for
that
it.
no one uses.
That no one uses, of course.
Right, but they will need...
Yeah. But anyway, I thought that was something that was quite interesting.
Wow. So what else does he say in that? They're just he's basically was moaning that we should be a sciencer because butchers are cool.
Well, I mean, another guy, let's go back to Henry again, Henry Armstrong. We shall do well to take notice that scientist is fast becoming a word of evil import in the public ear, as meaning one of the set of peculiar people who talk a language no fellow can understand. Some day soon, perhaps, the call may come to label Nature, the Journal of Babel. The dictionary will then give Babel, the language of a sect devoted to an obscure practice known as science.
Science Shed! We're in the Science Shed! Science Shed! We're in the Science Shed! Come on, Steve!
Bunsen,
Burner!
Dolly,
Machine!
internal.
Combustion!
Why do we need
Steam!
Petri,
Dishes!
Austin,
Space!
Isaac,
Newton!
transplanting?
Science!
Cynic.
Steve.
That was another episode of The Science Shed.
Oh, is it finished already?
It's finished already.
Oh, well, I was just getting warmed up.
I think... so I saw my mum at the weekend, and she listened to The Science Shed.
I saw your mum at the weekend.
Did you
yeah.
know? And she said she likes the sound effect of the saw the most.
Yeah, I like the saw.
The shed sounds. Maybe we
Yeah.
should put more shed sounds in The Science Shed.
Let's do it, Steve.
Okay, well, so if people like this and they want to hear more, please check us out, The Science Shed on iTunes and SoundCloud.
Yeah, and come and find us on Twitter too.
That's right, I'm Steve the Chemist,
And I'm the Evans Lab.
and we'll see you next time.
See you guys.
Thanks very much.
Bye.